Thank you very much. It is indeed my honor to be with you this evening with the Armenian National Committee that has done so many important efforts over the years for not just Armenian communities throughout the United States, but throughout the world. I count myself proudly as a member of the Armenian caucus. For my name is Aram, and I come from the land of William Saroyan. When you grow up in the farm communities outside of Fresno, and your neighbors are Khazarians and Abrahamians and Collegians, and you learn, as we all learn, about the stories of immigrants past and immigrants present. And from wherever we come, we share those similar stories. But as a young person, I learned a long time ago, as a young boy, about the stories of the grandparents of my Armenian friends of the genocide. And it was very moving. And as a result of that, this was something that I felt, because my father's friends and my friends going to school made this a real story that is sadly the first genocide that occurred in the 20th century. And were it to be the only genocide that had occurred in the 20th century, and that it was an aberration, then we could, I think, look at it maybe in a different perspective. But it's important to recognize the Armenian genocide, because sadly, man's inhumanity to mankind continues. I don't have to tell you the story, you all know it from your youth, that Hitler in the 30s, when they began the horrific Holocaust on the Jews, and was counseled maybe this would be a difficult thing for the world to accept, he said, why should it matter? Who remembers or cares about the Armenian genocide? And in the late 1970s and the 80s and the 1990s, and sadly in the 21st century, we see it in Rwanda, we see it in the Congo. Last year I was in Darfur, in Sudan, where over 200,000 people, women and children, have been a part of the 21st century's first genocide. And so this is critical and important for all of these reasons. And it's why I join you today. It's why my colleague Laura Richardson joins you today. We are supporters, but it's important that we remember the great philosopher, historian Santanya, who I am fond of quoting, who once said, as many of you may know who are familiar with him, "For those whom forget history, they are doomed to repeat it." And we see that, sadly, again and again, as we see in these cycles here. So it is critical that you are here this week. The Armenian National Committee stands like a beacon for other communities throughout the world. And that's why, yes, go ahead, you can applaud. A beacon of light and a beacon of remembrance. As a member of the Foreign Affairs Committee last year, we were very, very hopeful when we passed the resolution out of the Foreign Affairs Committee to see the testimony, to see still 4 survivors there in their 90s as a part of the audience. And then sadly to see a combination of events that you're all familiar with preventing us from bringing the measure up for a successful vote on the House floor. Nonetheless, The coalition that supports the recognition of this must continue, and we must continue our efforts. We know that we always hear the timing's not right, but the timing will never be right, and therefore we must continue. We must continue these efforts because eventually Turkey will have to deal with the reality of its history. In a visit that I had 3 years ago, meeting with then the Foreign Affairs Minister for Turkey, who now is the leader of Turkey, I said, Mr. Foreign Minister at the time, we talked about a wide range of issues from Iran to Iraq to the negotiations for peace among the Palestinians and the Israelis. I said, I cannot leave this meeting today without bringing up the issue of the Armenian Genocide. And the way I did it was the following. I said, Mr. Foreign Minister, I says, Turkey is a very prideful country, just as the United States is a very proud country. And all countries have parts of their history that they would soon forget. I said, in our nation, we had the issue of slavery, and it created tremendous division. And we had a civil war to try to deal with the issue. And then even after the Civil War, we ended up with a division that lasted for over 100 years. And then we had to have a civil rights movement. And still, race is a difficult issue in our country. But we have recognized our mistakes. We have recognized the fact that slavery was wrong and that we performed injustice to our fellow mankind in our own country. We had the internment of the Japanese Americans during World War II. There are a whole host of instances. But when we make these mistakes, as bad as they are, a great country is capable of recognizing the mistakes they make. And so therefore, Turkey should be able to come to grips in the 21st century. No one blames you or the current generation for what occurred almost 100 years ago. But Turkey must come to grips with this. And of course, he gave the response that you're all familiar with, that it was a difficult time, the Ottoman Empire, and it was a small event, it was blown out of proportion, and all the other stuff. I said, with all due respect, Mr. Foreign Minister, I respectfully disagree, and I think history disagrees with all the historians that have weighed in over the decades. So I must go, but I must continue to advocate on your behalf as Congressman Laura Richards advocates on your behalf, and I know she would like to share some thoughts with you. We have, I think, a great coalition of members who understand the importance of this poster. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for being here this week. I look forward to every time that you come to our nation's capital. It is your capital. It belongs to all Americans. And therefore, we must continue to try to ensure that we advocate the public policy that really reflects America's finest, I think, instincts. And that is the Constitution that protects all of our rights. Thank you very much. God bless each and every one of you.